We are going to multitask today. It's going to be a fantastic day. I have so much to do. We have our Friendsgiving this weekend. And I love doing this mainly because I love to cook. And I love cooking Thanksgiving dinner. And we don't do the big family dinners anymore. You know, everyone's scattered or gone. And so I torment my friends. And we are having a big Friendsgiving Thanksgiving dinner here this weekend. And so I need to make some sage bread for the stuffing. So I'm going to be doing that. But while we're doing that, I thought that it would be a great time to talk about a topic that is near and dear to my heart, mainly because I was there for a while, and that is the working poor. Those are people that have a full-time or more job that doesn't pay well enough to actually be a livable wage. There are companies all over the country reporting record profits while their employees actually have to have SNAP benefits to help them get by. And now those aren't there. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sutton's Days. If you're new here, my name is Lisa. We are all about pantry preparedness, and that includes all the cooking, all the canning, all the stocking of your pantry, everything that's involved. But today we're going to chat for a little bit because we're in the middle of this dumpster fire, and we're going to talk about a sect of people that receive SNAP benefits because they don't make a living wage. And it's an extraordinary amount of people. There was a time, I never did press that button, you know, but I actually had the paperwork and was sitting there reading it going, I don't know if I should do this. I just don't know if I should do this, you know. And it was a really tough spot. It was during those times when, you know, a hot and ready pizza was literally the meal for the week. And when there was just no money, but I was working constantly. It's because I was working constantly, but I wasn't making enough money to pay the rent, the bills, the utilities, you know, all of that fun stuff. And, oh yeah, by the way, food. Okay, and then don't forget about the gas that it costs to get to and from the job that doesn't pay me enough to show up. There are so many households out there that are one washing machine breakdown, one flat tire, one illness away from catastrophic financial failure. And it's not due to their lack of planning. It's due to their lack of income because they're working for whatever minimum amount that these companies are paying, and it's just not a living wage. But it is a full-time job, you know? Well, they could go get a better job, says you. That's awful privileged of you, because right now, pretty much nobody can find a job, okay? It's really difficult to find a job. The higher educated you are, I think it's even more difficult lately, because they know you're not going to stick around if things turn around. And so they don't want to put all that time and effort into training you if you're going to leave. There are people leaving stuff off of their resume just so that people will actually consider them for a position that is way below what their education level says. There are families squeaking by, you know, and people, well, you should get a better job. Well, you know what, sweet cheeks, if that were the case, you would have nobody digging out your groceries at your local grocery store and packing them up for you. You would have nobody cashing you out if they still have cashiers. You would have nobody getting your quarter pounder or your Big Mac and handing it to you through the window. These are full-time jobs. These are jobs that people rely on to get by, and they're failing. But these companies, well, they've got record profits. Okay, I can only do this if I'm doing two things at once. So we're going to come in and do this. Let's go make some bread. Real quick, because I can't do this without reading it, okay? These are some statistics. I'll put links down below for you just in case. But we really need to understand the reality. We need to acknowledge the facts, okay? Many people in the preparedness realm, just their messages go out there assuming that people have, you know, a comfortable income or some spare budget to be able to do stuff. Not always the case. For many folks who are working hard, full-time or part-time, the reality is extremely different. And so I while the channel is not 100% about, this particular demographic, I try to make sure that I cover something for every demographic. And yeah, it's rough. It's really rough out there. But here are some key statistics just so that you understand where the working poor term is, okay? In 2021, about 6.4 million people in the U.S. were considered working poor. 6.4 million. Defined as people who spent at least 27 hours a week in the labor force, working or looking for work, yet whose incomes still fell below the official poverty level. Can you imagine? Yeah, working full time and not making enough to even meet the poverty level. It's just amazing. In 2022, the working poor rate was about 4% of those in the labor force for 27 weeks. The overall poverty rate in 2024 was down to about 10.6% of the U.S. population, roughly 35.9 million people. Well, that's good. Then 2025 hit. Okay. Job quality matters. Many working poor face low earnings, unstable schedules, involuntary part-time work, or unemployment spells due to the field that they are in. There are times where people, they work 9 months out of the year, but for 3 months, they literally can't do anything because of weather or, whatever the case. And so they need help at that point. But the rest of the time, they're working their butt off, just trying to get by. So if you're working, think about this, maybe more than one job, because a lot of people are out there working 2, 3, but still find yourself stretched thin, you're far from alone. Never for a minute think you're on your own. You're not alone. There are so many people going through this. And that makes the normal stock up or emergency preparedness advice harder to follow. And I get that. I absolutely do. But that's exactly what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about how maybe you can do it. We're going to address some issues with the working poor. And maybe it'll inspire you to find ways to help, because they need help. A lot of people need help right now. It's time to make the bread, and it's actually not going to be like in the big mixer this time. It's going to be in the regular size mixer. Yes, we are going to make my stuffing bread. Yeah, that's what I call it, stuffing bread. And I need it to stale up a little bit. Let me see. I wrote down my recipe because it's been so long since I've made bread. This is driving me crazy. And we're doing a double batch, but I'll put a link down below for the recipe. The basic recipe. That's it, the basic recipe. Okay, so I don't have my tablespoon. When your budget is tight, or maybe your income fluctuates. Not everybody has the same paycheck every week. There's a lot of different ways that people earn a living out there. And those things can definitely impact, nice catch, right? Can definitely impact how you're able to prepare. And it's something that you need to seriously understand, seriously need to consider. Preparedness isn't about buying bulk lots or high-end gear. It's about smart steps. It's about maximizing what you already have and creating small buffers. And I'm going to give you some examples while I try to figure out what my next step is here. Because talking and doing this at the same time, I haven't done in a while. 2, 4, 6 is what I need. Okay, so 3 of these. So let's look at this, okay? Buffer for income instability. Easier said than done. It really is. But you need to create a buffer for when things are crazy. And if you're just getting to the point where you're digging yourself out of a hole because of whatever, that makes it a little more difficult. But if you have variable hours, shifts canceled, overtime lost, try to build a tiny cash buffer, even $50 to $100. So a missed paycheck doesn't immediately derail you, But that's where, quite honestly, your pantry will eventually, as you get it built up, will eventually be able to be that buffer a lot of times. Not that that $50 to $100 won't be helpful. I mean, that's gas money, you know, but to have to use that $50 to $100 to split between gas money, food, you know, whatever the case may be, that's hard. Essential survival stock, not luxury gear. Okay, I'm not talking about luxury gear. That is never what I'm talking about. But I need my oil. Okay, and my oil is 6. Okay, so you want to think about basic food, okay? Water, emergency medicine, a plan for when something goes wrong, like your car breaks down, you know, food delivery is disrupted, your AC or your heat fails, you know, that kind of thing. You need to make some plans. And plans right now don't cost anything. How much was this? 246. Okay. So making a plan doesn't cost you a dime. That's something you can do in your theoretical spare time. And I know there's a lot of folks out there who honestly are, you know, what spare time? But when you're working 2-3 jobs, it's hard to find spare time, if you know what I mean. Okay, so I got that, and it's proofing. So we're going to let it sit there and proof for a minute, and we're going to talk some more. Routine-friendly systems. Yes. Set up routines that fit your schedule. This is important. For example, grocery shopping after shifts, prepping one extra bit on the weekend, tracking what you already own. Inventory doesn't cost you anything, okay? But if you build those routine-friendly systems, make it part of your daily, weekly, monthly routine, then it becomes a little more easier and a little easier to focus on, okay? So you may have to remind yourself for a little while, but you'll get there. Definitely accessing existing resources. I have said it for a very long time. If you are on Social Security, if you are retired, if you receive benefits, if you are working full-time and still can't afford food, utilize the food pantries. There is no shame in this game. You eating, your family eating is so much more important than literally anybody else's opinion, okay? And we don't need their opinions. Utilize the food pantries, even now, even today. You just can't get to the point where there's nothing. You can't get down to that point. The key is to be away from that point at least a couple of weeks, 3 weeks, a month, 2 months, 3 months, you know. Work your way towards it. It's not going to happen overnight. And obviously, you know, don't take advantage of a situation, but they're there and they need to be utilized. And they're there specifically so that you can make sure that you and yours eat. Is it going to be the food you want or used to? Maybe, maybe not, probably not. But it's food. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters. It's food. Okay, so unless there is an allergy or, you know, outlying issues regarding texture or something like that, you can make something out of everything you get from the food pantry. It just might be a new experience for you. New experiences are good. That's how we grow as individuals, okay? It's going to require a mindset shift. Absolutely going to require a mindset shift. Even small wins count. Every little extra can on the shelf, man, that's a win. Do the happy dance around the house, you know? If you're working 40, 50, 60 hours a week and still living paycheck to paycheck, preparedness might seem like it's pretty far off. And I get it. I've been there. But it doesn't have to be an all or nothing. This is something that you build up gradually. Please do the mindset shift and recognize every single tiny accomplishment that you do, because they add up to big accomplishments. And big accomplishments will see you through the hardest times in your life. If you are considered one of the working poor, okay, I got some steps that you can follow, and we have proofed. We have proof. Yes, we do. Okay. So 1, track your baseline. You need to know where your starting point is, so where your baseline is, okay? And so for 1 month, if you don't know this, go back and look through your debit card or your checking, checkbook or anything. But for 1 month, track your income, hours, essentials, rent, mortgage, utilities, food, transportation, and see where the margin is, even if it's small. It might be a couple of bucks, okay? It's not unheard of for it to be a couple of bucks. I need to add flour and salt. Thank you very much. Okay, so you have to know what your baseline is. The next one is to create we're going to call it a micro emergency fund, because, I'm not looking for a few $1,000s. You just need a micro emergency fund. So aim for 50 to $100, okay? And that's not taking it out of one paycheck, my friends. No, not ever, not ever. If you can. If you cannot do it over the course of a month, divide it by 4 or whatever, whatever your pay periods are, divide it up. Start off with a micro emergency fund of 10 to $20, and then from there build it up to 20 to $40. Build it up from there to 50 to $100. This could be put aside as a separate savings envelope or in an account, depending on your circumstances and what's going on. So I need to put 2, 4, 6, 8, 4 times. Thank you for doing the math with me, because mathing and talking is hard. You want to build your basic food buffer. A basic food buffer is really simple to do, and actually on a tight budget, it's not going to kill you. Pick one additional shelf-stable food item every pay period. One item. That's 3. I got to stop. I got to do this last one. Okay. And then add that into your pantry, one item every pay period. If you have enough money, a bag of rice. If you have a little bit less money, then you can maybe take advantage of a pasta sale and get a few extra boxes, Get some flour, get, whatever it is that you eat. So that's the best way to do that. For example, add 1 extra canned vegetable. I mean, that's, if you have $1, I don't need that much. I need that much. Okay. If you have $1 to put towards your food pantry, to stocking up, that's $1 more than what you had before. And it's a great thing. Yes, it is. I have to knead this for about 7 minutes. So real quick, over time, you'll have a small emergency pantry. You're not going to have it tomorrow. You might not even have it next month. But over time, you will build a small emergency pantry with these consistent and steady steps. Thank you. You can do it. You can absolutely do it. I was talking so much, I forgot to put the poultry seasoning in there. You can use sage. You can use poultry seasoning, whatever floats your boat. Both of them work very well for having a great seasoned stuffing if you make your own stuffing or dressing. Just in case you were wondering. Okay. Now, number 4, another thing, I'm big on the planning. I am so big on the planning. So an emergency service plan, okay, that would be the next thing to do. Think about what happens if you can't work for a week. A shift gets canceled, a car repair, sickness. Have a backup plan. You got to figure out a backup plan. And you have to do it ahead of time instead of, thank you. Instead of while the emergency is happening. That's not the way to do it, my friends. You need to plan ahead different scenarios. Literally, I think I have almost perfected doing that, I will sit there or, when I should be sleeping, and I'll come up with these worst case scenarios and go, okay, what do I do if it happens? What do I do if I can't work? What do I do if I have to have surgery? What do I do if, something happens to Phil, you have to sit down and spend some quality time with it, because ignoring it doesn't make it better. So make your backup plan. Who can you call? What expenses can you reduce temporarily? Because you're going to have to, Now, 5 is home essentials. Ensure you have basic hygiene and sanitation supplies that you regularly use. If utilities fail or supply lines get disrupted, especially relevant for winters, Why is that one not working? Okay, that's something you need to think about, winter storms. Then you'll be ahead of the game. Yes, you want to make sure that you've got those covered. So take some time and, just get a couple extra if you can. If everybody in the house uses the same deodorant, because at the end of the day, it's deodorant. Everybody doesn't need a different kind, But if you have a couple extra, then you know that you're covered. A little, extra toothpaste, extra shampoo, extra bar soap, that kind of stuff. Definitely something to think about. Where did I put my towels? Okay, and then we need to always figure out how to use our time wisely. Oh, and it's exhausting. Life is exhausting, and I get that. And so figuring out how to use your time wisely when you're struggling, when you are part of the working poor and you're working extra hours and you're trying to make ends meet and you're trying to, work 2-3 jobs, free time is not a thing. It doesn't exist. You're barely getting enough sleep. And so you really need to figure out how to use your time wisely. So make your preparedness tasks plug in to what you already do, It just, for example, while cooking dinner, also pack leftovers for an emergency container, like, lunches or whatever. Or, you've got leftover soup in the fridge now. While shopping for groceries, ask, can I add one item I didn't plan for the pantry? Try to think ahead. And sometimes you're so buried in the day-to-day, I get it, that it's hard to think ahead. But try to. You definitely, always, we all always have to review and adjust, because, it's life. That's the way it works, Because income and hours may change, your plan must remain flexible. And honestly, I think anybody who believes that their income or their hours won't change are not paying attention to this year, So anybody should make a plan, because your income or your hours can very easily change when you're at the mercy of literally anybody else, okay? Be flexible. Review your food buffer, okay? Your cash buffer, your home essential stock, and adjust for what has changed. What can you get away with not doing right now? And sometimes it's very little, but a very, very little still adds up. So you need to be able to be flexible and adjust. And I know it's a difficult thing to do when you're in the throes of it. Now we have to let it rise. Just leave it alone, ignore it, and let it rise, which is much easier said than done, I know. Okay, but we're going to get on to some specific tips, possibly tricks, to help. Start small. Start small. Don't expect to do all the big things right away. You got to work your way up to it, okay? If you're just beginning, maybe this month, okay, you add one extra canned item or one extra jar of sauce. Next month, add another. Slowly. It's a slow thing. It really is. Because your budget may not allow for big lump sums. So, but trust me, believe me when I tell you that if you do this small step consistently, then in time, your budget will have more give for unexpected lump sum purchases that you discover, or bills that suddenly crop up, that kind of stuff. So Start small. You can do it. Just 1-2 cans at a time. Leverage your skills. That's huge. Leveraging your skills is big. If you can, or preserve foods, which, I'm all about, I love it, use that skill to stretch your pantry. It will stretch your pantry so good, and you don't have to rely on electricity if the power goes out, so you don't lose it all if it's in the freezer. I get it, but there's all these pros to being able to preserve food. And if you can't yet, because you're saving up for a canner, that's fine. That is absolutely fine. Please don't take those risky shortcuts. There are a gazillion people on the internet that will lie to your face because they're not going to pay for your medical bills or your funeral when you do it according to their methods and you end up getting sick. And you know what? When the whole world is a dumpster fire and you're really barely making it paycheck to paycheck, that's not the time to get an extra hospital bill, So please just wait to do it right. I know what it's like to really want to do it yesterday. I get it. You'll get there. You will get there. Linking it to a habit is another really great way to make it happen. So each time you grocery shop, after you've bought your essentials, okay, ask yourself, what's one extra item I can pick up today for my buffer? If you ask yourself that, like if you go grocery shopping and you find out you saved a little money, it should be at the bottom of your list. What one extra thing can I afford to put in my pantry? What one extra thing? So that it's always just one of those thoughts. Do I have it? Can I use it? Can I do it? I can do it. What do I want it to be? There you go. Prioritize comfort and morale. Two very, very important things. I am struggle busing so hard this last week because I found out that our local St. Vincent de Paul, we work with them a lot on a lot of different stuff. And I found out that their food pantry, which is literally the only food pantry open every day of the week that they're open, which is 5 of them, in the entire county, in a county that is the oldest demographic in the state of Michigan and one of the lower income counties in the state of Michigan. They're the only one that anybody can go to any day that they're open to get food if they need it. And they're out of meat. They have no meat. And so I literally just got the call back today so that I could get some answers on what they're allowed to accept. And it's a lot more open than I thought it was, which is super cool. So now I'm going to be going through and, making some space in my freezers and helping somebody out in the interim. You never know. Okay. So when I think about those people and when I remember, quite honestly, trying to figure out how I was going to juggle this, how I was going to make it happen, it's paralyzing. It is absolutely paralyzing. So every now and then you really need to focus on comfort and morale, because without them, eventually you're going to spiral, When you're working hard and living with very little margin, morale matters, because if you wake up in the morning literally hating your life every day, it's not good, okay? So maybe include one item you like herbal teas. I'm not talking about steak and shrimp and everything else. I'm talking about one little favorite thing that just makes you feel good, okay? Something that doesn't break the bank, but put it in your buffer category, because having those around, I joke all the time about the emotional support Twinkie, Sometimes you just really need it there. Sometimes you just really need that hug from something in your pantry, because the rest of the world is a dumpster fire. And I get it. I really do. I used to keep chocolate chips in a container in my kitchen. And you knew it was a bad, bad, bad month when I actually hit them up. Yeah. I'd only have a few, but they would see me through, They gave me a little hug. It helps keep you motivated, and it helps you feel less deprived. Definitely factor in seasonal planning. Okay, seasonal planning is something that everyone should be doing, but very important when your income is flexible and, can change at the beat of a heart. Because like if you live in Michigan, okay, and winter prep matters, think ahead. If storms hit, supplies may be harder to get. So even small extras now make a big difference come winter. If we get hit like we're supposed to with snow, you want to try to do what you can to make sure that if it's really bad out, you don't have to leave the house, that you've got something there to see you through. If you're watching anything that, seems to be employing scare tactics, then you definitely want to maybe avoid for a little while. Kind of step back. And that could be the daily news, okay? Literally anything. Just kind of ratchet back a hot minute and go, okay, I think I need a break. Turn it off for a little bit. Turn on some good music. Turn on some fiction, There's nothing makes the world a little bit better than some fiction, unless it's like, well, even murder mysteries are good, okay? It's a hell of a spot that we're in. It really is. And I understand. And I try to find smiles while we're in the middle of it. And I try to offer help. And I hope that I am. So if you have any questions specific to this particular demographic, the working poor, what can you do? How can you help? I mean, I work with a really great organization that actually set up a fund for the employees that they've got, because most of them are, low income. It's a nonprofit organization. They're not making buku bucks. And in order to keep the employees, they set up a thing where they could do a loan program, and it's a revolving fund. And if something comes up, like your washing machine breaks, you can ask to borrow the money for that, and then it's paid back over the course of time through your paycheck. It's not like a company store kind of thing, because it's not, there's no interest, there's no, elevated nothing. But so far they've had 100% return on it. It's flipped over now, I think like 3 or 4 times. And it really helps the people that are the most at risk. When the washing machine breaks, when the car gets a flat tire, when, any little thing happens. I get it, and I've been there. And I know. And you've got no opinions from me, okay? I want to try to make it easier. I want to try to make it so that I have some answers to help you get through what are some of your most difficult days. But eventually, with any luck, these days will be in your rearview mirror, and you'll be able to look back and go, okay, and maybe you can help somebody moving forward. That's the important thing to do. And now, because I just think it's fun, okay? Now it's your turn. Choose one small action this week. You can do it. Add one item to your food buffer, or save $10 or $20 towards your micro emergency fund, or review your schedule and identify, a vulnerability and figure out an action plan for what happens if it occurs. What did you choose? Throw it in the comment section down below if you are comfortable doing so. No judgment from me. Not a chance. Until next time, everybody, be safe. Keep stacking it to the rafters. Every can that you can.